So Nick Fuentes is a name that you've either heard of or you're probably going to hear about because I've never really seen someone rise to the spotlight like this kid has recently. And in today's video, I wanted to go with a simple idea, which is why is he so popular? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So back in 2017, apparently Nick was hosting a talk show at Boston University where he attended. And I didn't know this before this video, before I did some research, but also in 2017, he attended the infamous Charlottesville rally, which was called Unite the Right. And it's where the people had tiki torches. And it was honestly one of the biggest political talking points back in 2017. If you guys don't remember it, it was everywhere. It was talked about for a number of years. And Nick was one of the faces of that rally. And there's actually an interview with him about 7 years ago where they're asking him about it. And he's talking about the repercussions, the backlash, and everything that came from it. And apparently, the threats against his life became so severe from that rally that he ended up not only dropping off of the talk show at Boston University, but he dropped out of the university altogether. And he was apparently very briefly on the Right Side Broadcasting Network, which he was fired from after making some threats against the CNN staff. And so he was basically branded as this very far right, extreme right wing pundit that, nobody really wanted to touch, nobody really wanted to talk about. And he was way off in the stratosphere. And most people hadn't really heard of him or weren't really familiar with him at this point. And then you go to kind of the modern day and everyone's talking about him. The reason that I believe everyone's talking about him right now is because number one, it's popular, right? Why does anyone talk about anything on YouTube or any platform? It's because they know it's going to do numbers, they know it's popular, virality, etc. But at the heart of what he's doing, which is actually smart, he's going at a lot of these traditional conservative, uh, talk show hosts, podcasters, etc. That I think a lot of people are very tired of. So when we talk about people like Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, these are traditional conservative voices that have been popular for a while, but I personally think a lot of people are getting very tired of because we're discovering things like, they have ties and they're being paid by certain people to have certain influences. They refuse to speak against certain subjects, which Nick is very open about. And actually, in the recording of this video, he's actually going back and forth right now on Twitter with Candace Owens. They had an interview together. Candace is a very big conservative voice. She had Nick on her podcast. It was very contentious. It was very weird. There was a little bit of fallout from it. And now she's actually saying, well, let's have him back. Let's have another interview. Let's have a debate, all this stuff. And if you so much as just look up Nick's name on YouTube, which by the way, he's actually banned or he was banned on YouTube, Twitter. He was banned from using PayPal. He was put on a no-fly list, and so the narrative again around this kid was nobody wants to talk about him, and which is why I think it's so fascinating now that everyone wants to talk about him. And he has this movement. He has these followers that are very adamant about getting his name out there, and so they'll actually go after some of these political pundits like Charlie Kirk. They'll constantly use his name. They'll go and subvert his, Turning Point USA where he's giving speeches just to say, hey, you should debate Nick Fuentes. His followers are very, very, very loyal to him. But I think the strategy he's using is he's very anti establishment. He's doing basically what Trump did back in 2016, which is where he labeled himself as being an anti establishment candidate. And a lot of people like that because going against the establishment is often popular. And so going against people, again, like Tucker, like Candace, like Charlie Kirk, is something that I think is very popular. And I think that a lot of these traditional conservative voices have kind of rested on their laurels and have basically said, no one's going to challenge us. And here comes this kid who's completely disrupting everything and he's challenging everyone. And I want to say in this video that I don't know everything Nick has ever said. This isn't an endorsement of Nick or his views. This is simply just an interesting video that, I think this kid is only going to continue to get more and more popular and is someone that we're going to have to talk about. And, I'm someone who is for free speech. I'm someone who is for the freedom of ideas. And I think the best thing we can have really are open and honest discussions. And so I would love to see him have discussions with, people like the traditional voices, like Ben Shapiro, which would probably, I'm sure Ben would never talk to um, Nick. But maybe, he's talking to Candace. Maybe I think Tucker Carlson might have him on eventually because he's becoming so popular. And then Charlie Kirk, who knows? We'll see what happens there. But yeah, this kid is definitely disrupting the political scene, the political sphere, and I would just love to see him get his ideas out there and see what he has to say. And if he says things that are hateful that we should condemn, then obviously we'll condemn them. But if he, raises good points, then I think it'd be interesting to hear some of those points. But let me know what you think in the comments. Obviously, this is a very divisive figure. On YouTube, he's everywhere. But, is this someone that we should be platforming? Is this someone we should not be platforming? Let me know. And I appreciate you guys watching.